tratado de olvidarte. ¿Cuántas veces sin lograrlo así? ¿Cuántas veces, cuántas noches sin tus besos? Aún sabiendo que te alejas más de mí.
And I see I have a friend here, Elaine. You have an AARP background. Do you work in the Connecticut office?
Yes, public outreach and volunteer engagement. Nice to have you. Yep.
Nice to have you. Oh,
Thank you.
I'm gonna call on you to answer some questions, quite possibly for me.
I think our lead volunteer, Marilyn Diaz, might be in this group too,
Okay.
from Connecticut.
Yeah, I don't see her.
Maybe there she is. Hola. She just popped up.
Hola, I was being incognito.
Hola, Marilyn. ¿Cómo estás? How are you?
Nice to see you again. Yeah, I know, right? It's been a while.
It has been a while. Okay, yes, we connected a couple years ago. So I will introduce myself. It looks like we have a lot of folks, and I will do my best to pay attention to the 2-minute warning to get you guys back to the keynote that is after this breakout session. I am completely off on time because we were supposed to start at 11 and we were supposed to be finished by 11:30. But I blocked off my afternoon to be here. So I was originally going to be joined by Rebecca Melly, who is unable to join us today. And the format that we were going to follow was really a Q&A. Rebecca wanted me to talk about AARP. She wanted me to talk a little bit more about the organization itself and what it does. She felt that it's possible that a lot of folks who are tuned in may not know what AARP is and may not be familiar with the work that AARP does. So I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Veronica, Segovia, Bedon, and I work in AARP's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And you know, this is a new office for AARP. At least in the last 7 years, we have not had an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. What I worked in previously was multicultural marketing and outreach. And I am currently assigned to a team that works focused on the Hispanic Latino outreach. So working across the association at AARP, mostly with state offices. For the last 5 years, the multicultural team has really been focused on empowering and consulting and working with state offices, because all our state offices had, and even communities within a state, have varied levels of engagement with the Latino community. Some offices have been doing it for a really long time and are really great and really just need our help with branding or that kind of messaging. And then there are others who are just starting out and wanting to know how to get started. So it's an interesting job. There's internal and external work, but some of the most favorite things that I get to do in my role for the last couple of years has been really standing up our pillar of dinero. So when we go out into the Latino community, when we work with folks at AARP who want to reach out to the Latino community, we talk to them about working and doing communication around 3 pillars, these 3 key areas of our life, which are salud, dinero, y amor, right? Everybody is familiar with those 3 terms: your health, your wealth or your money, and love. And so, you know, in English, AARP talks about your happiness or your fun and fulfillment. But in Spanish, we put that together as amor. And so that amor, that love, can mean self-love, love for our family, love for our community, love for our culture. And really that for us, happiness comes with love. And so that's why we talk about it that way. AARP, for those who may not know, is the largest nonprofit organization in the United States, working to empower people to choose how they live as they age. What does that mean? So we're doing lots of work. The social mission behind the work of AARP is around the 50 plus. So making sure that people 50 and over can live a life they want to live, regardless or across any age, any socioeconomic status, any race, any culture, any language. So we do a lot of work in the economic space. I think the term building wealth is something that is new to AARP. I'll be honest about that. It's something that I've been introducing to groups that I work with, particularly because we do have a focus on the 50 plus, right? And so when we think about our Latino community, it's a young community. You know, the average age of Latinos in the United States is 28, and the most populous age, meaning like the most popular age, is around 11 or 12. And so when I'm a millennial, I'm 38 years old. When I work with people at AARP, you know, I'm really encouraging them to think about the impact that the organization can have on people who are over 50, on Latinos who are over 50, by connecting to people who look like me, who are bilingual, who speak English and Spanish. A lot of the work that we've traditionally done has been, okay, we're doing Latino outreach, let's just translate everything. Let's just make it available in Spanish. And that's necessary. We do need to do that, but we still can go out to bilingual folks or people who prefer English, but have people in their household who speak Spanish, right? So when I'm engaging with you all, I want to make sure that I have content and resources that are available in both, so that if something that I say or bring up is interesting to you, but might be helpful to someone you know who speaks Spanish or prefers Spanish, that we have that. And so that's my job. I do a lot of internal work at AARP, and I do external work like this. And I'll just bring up some of the questions that Rebecca had curated for me. She had brought up some discussion topics. And the first one was the importance of financial literacy in the Latina community, along with representation. So, you know, I think I don't have to convince anybody on this meeting or in this session that financial literacy is important, right? I think that's why you're here. You want to either build wealth, or you're in a place where you have built some wealth and you want to do good with that wealth, or and wealth can mean, you know, it can mean money and amounts of money. It can mean liquid assets, but wealth can also mean that you're healthy, you're in a confident space for yourself, and you feel good and happy and worthy, right? Every day. And no matter what that bank account looks like, remember that you are worthy, right? You as a person, you in that role in your family and in your community, you have that worth. And so financial literacy is something that I'm working very, very hard at AARP to produce resources. And I want to put an example of that. And I'm not sure, because it looks like I can do that here. So I can share a file. And so that's what I want to do with you all. I worked with a group, actually with a influencer, if we want to call her that. She's an expert certified financial counselor, and her name is Jen Hemphill. I don't know how many of you are familiar with her. She has a podcast. It's called Her Dinero Matters. And we this year put together an event called Financially Strong Latina. And Financially Strong Latina was focused on really bringing Latina speakers together to show that there is a growing amount of experts around personal finance who are Latina, because we realize that it's important for us to see ourselves and to feel represented. So I worked with Jennifer. Jennifer is from Colombia originally, and you know, in curating this list of speakers, one of the things that I brought up to her was just the importance of also having Afro-Latina or Black Latina representation, right? It is very important for us to see ourselves. And I see you snapping for us, Desiree. So I'm going to definitely make sure that I get you a link, because that was really important. It is really important for people to feel seen and feel, because Latinos, I mean, as a group, Latinas, we all look different. We don't all look the same. We don't all fit in one box. And so do our lives. So do our families, right? Everybody's got a different situation. But what we do have is our similar values around family. And so we put together a digital toolkit for financially strong Latina that involves, that included really a guide. It gives a definition of what it means to be financially strong. So we could use financial literacy as like a stepping stone into understanding terminology, understanding, you know, a checklist, or maybe like 5 steps that we need to follow to get started on our path. But there's always more that we can learn. So I would say that personally, financial literacy, I'm on a continuum with that, right? And it also included, you know, why strength and feeling more empowered with our money is within our reach, and what it means to get clear and have a plan for our money, and then also how to create what we call financial stability. And it includes resources that we have at AARP. So AARP, as the exclusive sponsor of this event, is able to share the different kinds of resources that we have, but also we're able to distribute and redistribute and own the digital toolkit that we put together, focused on financial strength specific to Latinas. We also know that these conversations can continue with a focus on small business. Latinas are the #1 growing group of entrepreneurs. Small business, you know, there are folks who, yay, Anne-Marie, I guess. You know, and oftentimes when you start a small business or you start your business, you might be an expert in whatever offering that is, your product. You might be an expert in whatever consulting you're offering, or it might be that you put on events. But we go into that work with all of the love, todo el corazón, pero sin la preparación, right? We go in with all of our heart and without all the preparation. And hey, it's never going to be the perfect time to launch your business or start your business. But there are things that we can continue to do so that as we're growing our business, we're also growing our own financial literacy. And so AARP is doing work in addition to the work that we've done sponsoring Her Dinero Matters and Financially Strong Latina. We're also a sponsor of Friends of Puerto Rico. So I don't know if anyone on the call is familiar with Angelique Sina and her group, Friends of Puerto Rico, but we host webinars with Friends of Puerto Rico focused on entrepreneurship, focused on financial literacy. And so I really encourage you to, if you aren't already, either on Facebook or Instagram, following Friends of Puerto Rico or AARP, please do, because that's where we promote those webinars. We also sponsor the work of a group called Latinos for a Secure Retirement. I don't know if folks on this call are familiar with Latinos for a Secure Retirement. They host Cafecito y Dineros on Facebook Live. They're also hosting a Young Adult Retirement Summit in June. So it's on June 30th. It's virtual. Our board president, for the first time in 60 years, AARP has a Latina board president. Her name is Annette Frankie, and she will be opening that session as the sponsor of that Young Adult Retirement Summit. We have the opportunity to invite Annette to speak, and she is also a personal finance expert. That's what her career has been, in personal finance and financial literacy. And so she will be speaking to that. And the beauty of participating in this and I see a question, so I will get to it in 1 second. The beauty of working with organizations or coalitions like Latinos for a Secure Retirement is that all the work that AARP has been doing for many, many years, focused, on the general market, if we want to call it that, we're able to work with organizations like Latinos for Secure Retirement, Unidos US, Latinas Empower, to bring all the work that we've been doing that's constantly going on, but connecting it to Latinas like ourselves and in culturally relevant ways, in culturally relevant settings, with other speakers who are representative or who understand, you know, what it's like to grow up as a Latina, or what it's like to be an immigrant who came to this country 20, 30 years ago and who has built their family and their business. And so that's what I love the most about the work that I get to do. And I can share the links for Friends of Puerto Rico webinars that we have coming up. I can also share the links for registering for Latinos for Secure Retirement. I don't have them with me right now, but I will get them to Marilyn so that she can share them as feedback, as sort of a follow-up with everybody who's participating today, because we'd love to have you there and continue to expose you to some of the resources that AARP has. And that was the next sort of topic, was going over some of the specific tools that AARP has, which is AARP Money Map. AARP's Interview and Advisor tool is new. And then a lot of the advocacy work that we do. So I was happy to see Elaine was here, and I saw that she turned her camera off, but I might call on you, Elaine, because I do want to talk about Work and Save and all the work that AARP is doing around Work and Save. I have a map, but I don't have all 12 states in front of me that have enacted Work and Save legislation. I know that my state of Maryland has, and AARP is still working on what I think we can work on, and what I think will be really impactful, especially in the Latino community and Latina community, is, okay, if your state has passed this legislation, what do I do to make sure that I am saving for my retirement through my workplace if I have access to do that, right? So I see a question from LNP Helper.
That's me, Jacques. But it actually, Marilyn Cruz Aponte had put in the chat, is AARP membership required for access to the toolkits?
No, AARP membership is not required. And I am not here to sell you a membership, although, you know, I am a member, and I'm 38 years old, and I'm a lifetime member because I work at AARP. So that's an employee benefit of working at AARP. In case any of you are interested in working at AARP, you get a membership with working for us. And if you leave, you are a member for life. But no, so education and resources, all those tools, all the work that our state offices do, that's all free for anyone. And it, regardless of your age, it does not, you know, you can be 18 and up, I think, is what you need to be to access our AARP Money Map. But the digital resources and those kinds of tools, those are free and available. And it's because we are a nonprofit with a social mission that we're able to offer education and resources for free. What membership does get you is access to the provider services that AARP has, and that's all managed by a for-profit entity called AARP Services Inc. That some folks might not be familiar with, but AARP Services Inc. is who manages all of the provider relationships. So those relationships that we have that offer discounts to people or something like that, that's all housed in AARP Services. But AARP, yeah.
Sorry. We're getting some multiple questions from people who aren't exactly sure what AARP is or does.
Okay, that's great. I'm happy to go over that. So AARP is a nonprofit organization. Una organización sin fines de lucro, right? And AARP is the largest organization. We actually started as the National Retired Teachers Association. So that's actually where we got our start in education, focused on a social mission to support retired teachers who did not have you know, a secure financial life in their retirement. They didn't have access to pension benefits. They didn't have access to healthcare. Some of the most innovative things that I would say that were launched by NRTA or the early infancy stages of AARP are things like prescription drugs via mail. That kind of pharmacy is something that our founder started and created to respond to the needs of older adults, and specifically retired older adults. And for the last 21 years, AARP has gone by only the initials of AARP. Prior to that, it was called the American Association of Retired Persons. So it was really, really focused on people who are retired. And the social mission is tied to an interest group being the 50 plus, people who are over the age of 50. And it has a membership. And along with that membership, you receive, as members, people receive the magazine with the largest circulation in the world. We also have a bulletin, which is another print publication. And they are the two largest circulated publications in the United States. And that's because AARP has 38 million members. I want to make sure that I mention that, the social issues that we really focus on, it's a lot. It can come across like AARP does something for everyone. And I'd say that that's true. There's also folks who typically, know AARP for lobbying on the Hill, advocacy around these issues of health security, financial resilience, and that includes protecting programs like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and then also access to quality health care. So those are all really key issues in advocacy. I see Elaine's hand is up, so I want to make sure that I get her take, because she represents a local state office, and I do think that that's important for folks to hear.
Yeah, thanks, Veronica. Very quickly in the chat, people are saying that ARP, as you mentioned, stands for American Association of Retired Persons. And we've morphed into real possibilities for the RP, and now we're changing it again. But just to let people know, it's not just for retired people. In fact, I think about 30% of our volunteers in Connecticut are still working. And we have retired people that are jumping back into the workforce. So, and we even have volunteers that started with us below the age of 50. So I just wanted to let people know it's not solely retired people.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to get to. So formerly known as American Association of Retired Persons. And, Elaine, if you want, we can talk a little bit about why that is, right? So the people 50 and over are working longer, right? People are living longer, or pre-COVID, we're living longer. We had, especially in the United States, right? So now with that comes working for a longer period of time. I don't know how many people on this call are over 50. I'm not going to assume, because I don't want to do that. So I don't know how many people in this meeting are over the age of 50. But if you are over the age of 50 and you are still working, right, you are not a retired person. And so but that doesn't mean that AARP doesn't want to be relevant to you, because I'll go back to this social mission piece, which is very important for our tax exempt status as a nonprofit organization who can lobby, right? So I work for a 501c4, and that C4 designation allows us to do the lobbying and the advocacy that we do at a local level, at a state level, and at the federal level. We have a government affairs team that is very large and very powerful. For those of you who don't know, any elected official, if you tell them, I've got AARP on my side, they're going to listen to you. And that's because AARP has so many members, and so many members who vote. Oftentimes, we'll do voter education outreach, and I know this isn't necessarily on the topic of financial literacy, but it will show, our polling will show that the 50 plus are who impacted the way an election went. And that's because the 50 plus show up to vote. And that's why last year was such a critical year for a lot of advocacy and outreach work that we did around voter engagement, and also making sure that people knew how they could vote safely in their state. last year, because the 50 plus were impacted greatly by COVID, greatly by social distancing, greatly by, access to the poll, and why that's important. So I want to make sure that I mention, it is because, it's not just boomers anymore, or the greatest generation that are 50 plus. Gen Xers have been 50 plus for the last 5 years or so. So AARP is an organization that works really hard to be relevant to people for close, if you live to 100, we have to be relevant to you for 50 years. We have to be relevant to you across your different life stages, across different transitions in your life. And so that's what AARP seeks to achieve. And I think the exciting opportunity being in their Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is to make sure that we're doing that with careful consideration for these growing and emerging populations in the United States, and Latinos being a key priority for that, and Latinas being a key priority. So Latinas, just so you know, are a big area of priority for AARP this year. And it's why we're doing more and more work to celebrate women, to host events that are attractive to women, and to participate in events that exist where you already are, right? Because we want to meet you where you are. I see you have a question, Anne Marie, or a comment?
I do have a comment to your relevant to everyone across the board, and the AARP symbol and what that kind of gives to people. When I was in my 30s, my sister and I were at my mother's house, and she had an AARP magazine on the counter. Us as young kids, we don't even think we want to pick that thing up, right? It's AARP, it's retirement, it's old people, and that's the kind of the image that it was before. But we were sitting there talking to my mom, and we picked it up, and we actually saw an article for the Scottsdale Festival, their annual food festival in there. And we were hooked ever since to go to the Scottsdale Food Festival. I mean, who would have thought that, they weren't targeting two little Mexican girls, with the Scottsdale Food Festival, but we're like, oh, what magazine is this? And we flipped it over, and it was the AARP, because I was just standing there and talking to us. And anyway, so yes, since that was, okay, I am over 50. So that was about 20 years ago. So you've been relevant for a very long time. Not to be fooling all these young folks out here.
I appreciate you sharing that. I'm somebody who AARP has been relevant to me. I mean, I share this all the time. My dad turned 50 the year I was born, and I am not his youngest child. So, some people are like, oh, yeah, my dad is awesome. He's very cool. He's still around. He's 88. But like, I say that because I've lived with someone who's over 50 my entire life. And so the things that AARP offers have been relevant to me my entire life. And one of the things that we bring up, and I think it touches on financial, not literacy, but it does the impact and sort of the impact on our economic security. But as Latinos, our duty and our commitment to caregiving for our families, that really impacts our wallet. It impacts our wallet, it impacts our bank account, it impacts our decisions on how we're able to do things. It's caregiving isn't something that just happens when you're older, especially if you're in a multi-generational, multilingual home. I've been doing the duties of a family caregiver since I was 5 or 6 years old, and could call the doctor's office and make appointments for my mom, or go with her to her appointments and translate sort of what's happening or what she needs to do. And so I know there are probably other folks on in this breakout session who have had similar experience. And AARP has done a lot of research around caregiving, but especially the financial impact that caregiving has on us. And Latinas especially, we spend more money out of pocket on caregiving than any other group, than any other ethnicity. And part of the work that AARP does is to offer education and offer resources so that people can sort of understand better what the resources are in their state, around caregiving tax credits, where people can get help. And that's all very important because that impacts our bottom line as well. I appreciate you guys telling me when there are questions because I am not looking at the chat. I like to look at the camera so that you guys feel that I'm very engaged and that I'm here for you. I want to move on and just start to talk about the tools that we have, but I want to make sure that I'm not missing a question. Okay, so I see Tanya's question. What is a good rule of thumb of how much would be a good amount to start contributing to an investment? So I do have to say that as an employee of AARP, I am not here to give you specific financial advice. I am here to connect you to tools and resources and reading so that you can make that decision for yourself. Thank you, Martina. But I will say I can share personally, advice that I received from my dad. We've all had sort of different experiences growing up. There are, I was on a webinar with the Trabajadoras, the fellows of LACLA. So if you guys are familiar with the Labor Council for Latin American Advancement, the Trabajadoras is a fellowship that AARP sponsors and through the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And so it's a lot of young women, and by young, I mean 20 to 35 all on a call. And, someone gave the example of, I'm a daughter of immigrants. I don't know what a 401k is. And I'm a daughter of immigrants too. And I did know what a 401k was. So it's really just depends on everyone's individual experience, how we got here, what we do. And so when it comes to investing, that is something that my dad has said to me, that investing is something he wished he had learned more about, right? So and so that is something that I have committed to reading more about. There were things I didn't even know about until we did the Financially Strong Latina event, and we actually had some investor experts on, and they are Latina, and they shared some of the information. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Suma Wealth. I'm going to put it in the chat. And it's led by a woman named Beatriz Acevedo. She is one of the founders of Me Too. And she really is a content expert and somebody who knows a lot about creating content for Facebook, for Instagram, for email newsletters. But what she recognized was that there was this gap in access to information for Latinos specifically about money in general, and specifically around investing. And so she has a lot of webinars and information, and she connects to lots of experts who do specialize, I shouldn't say sort of, who do specialize in talking to people about how to learn about Bitcoin, right? That's something that people talk about. I can't tell you what to do. And when it comes to AARP, our savings and planning talking points and focus, they are really all based on saving and planning. Very low risk advice, really tried and true, not advice, I should say, but tried and true tactics. Those are really part of the messaging points that we have around savings and planning. And also, there is content that breaks down the differences between a 401k, a 403b, right? My husband has a 403b because he works for the federal government. I have access to a 401k at work. I also happen to have an employer who matches a certain percentage of what I put in for a 401k and also matches Roth. So if folks are, not everybody has that, but if you're looking for a job, check out working for AARP. That is something that we also have a pension in our benefit. That's something that's unique. Not everybody has that. And so I will say that the advice my father gave me is to max out the match for sure. And then to get as close to 10 or 15% of my paycheck as I can do it. In the last 4 years, my life has changed. I got married. I have a 2-year-old son. Daycare is not cheap in the DMV. It is pretty expensive. But once he's out of daycare, I decided when we were buying a home, I want to buy a home where I can send my kid to public school. So I have more money to put towards my retirement. So I have more money to put towards a mortgage so that I can pay this house down and actually own it, right? I think one of the key things that can impact how much investment you can do, and someone in here, Anne Marie, you shared, yeah, I agree. Investment advice is very personal. And you should consult professionals around it, because you do have to put your total situation on the table in order to understand what you can afford, right? And there's different advice, but often advice that I've heard is get rid of your debt. Like there's no, and this is not AARP giving you this advice, this is just what I've heard, but there's no reason for you to have, or for me to have, a ton of money sitting in the bank if I've got a credit card balance over here that money can go to pay down, right? And I see another question from Christopher. Is there any knowledge being directed towards helping teenagers save for college or just life savings or retirement? I love this question. I think that we should be doing those things. Honestly, at AARP, I'll be honest, I've been really focused on there are some people in our innovation group who are figuring out how to do outreach to millennials. And so teenagers or Gen Z and younger, aren't really on their radar. But my dad has always said to me that there should be high school curriculum for financial literacy. Why doesn't the United States have that, right? Why don't our public school systems have that? And I think that that's something that we should bring to elected officials. I think it's something we should bring to our school board. I'm going to the NALEO conference virtually, of course, but if any of you are connected with NALEO, Latino elected officials, there are a lot of Latino elected officials. We should be getting in front of them. A lot of them represent our own communities and why it's important to bring that financial literacy in. I went to school, I graduated high school in 2000. I entered college at a time where they were just handing out credit cards to teenagers. I mean, that's who we are. We're 18 years old, going to college, sign up for a credit card and you get this free t-shirt. Meanwhile, none of us know the implications of opening a credit card and what that can mean for us, right? And so I am somebody who went through my mid-20s, late 20s, paying off a lot of credit card debt, paying off a car I really shouldn't have bought, right? I didn't need to buy. So I think a lot of it has to do with wanting to have these courageous conversations to really establish the difference between needs and wants. And those are conversations that I'm still having with my husband now, and we're in our 30s, right? So I've established Money Saturdays, which is just Saturdays when my son is napping. When my son is napping, we have a money meeting. We don't do it every Saturday because my husband definitely rolls his eyes and he's like, oh, I really don't want to do this. He doesn't want to have the conversation, but we do it. And Marilyn, I definitely want to get you on. So we'll have you talk. And I just quickly want to mention a couple of social media folks that I follow. One is Wealth para Todos. Another one is Money in Matrimony. And that I think, you don't have to be married, you don't have to have a spouse necessarily, but if you live with someone or you have a partner in life who you really, make decisions with, I think Money in Matrimony is really interesting as well. And yes, Shelley, I was taught to balance a checkbook. I was taught to balance a checkbook. And what's interesting is that I have a checkbook. It's somewhere in this house. I don't use it. That's the other thing that's kind of crazy is that money, we've gotten sort of distant from actually like holding it in our hands. And that is something that has impacted, I think, a little bit of our relationship with it and how we use it. And so it's not something AARP is focused on, but there are other groups who focus on actually like teaching people and even kids as young as 2 to like actually see physical dollars and cents. So Marilyn, we only have a little bit of time, so I definitely want you to be able to.
No, I know. So I'd be remiss to not say that for all of you that are tuned in, please, please, please consider volunteering because Veronica has done a wonderful job of explaining some of the programs that we have, but we have so many more and you can go on and on forever. And I just would love to have your assistance to join us, Latina volunteers. There are only about 9 of us. We do a lot of advocacy work at the local level, but there there is so much more that we have to offer. And if you could please volunteer and help us to go ahead and talk more about programs like financial wealth, like caregiving. And we have a lot of programs that we have translated into bilingual, multilingual, Spanish and English, like Fraud Watch Network. There are a lot of scams going out there. So please, not only consider employment with ARP, but consider volunteering. It won't take a lot of your time, but please help us to spread the word about all the many programs that we have, because 9 of us aren't doing it. Honestly, we need more help. That's it.
Great. And I'm going to put in chat, sorry, Anne Marie, I sent it to you directly because I didn't click everyone, but I just want to encourage people, especially those who are asking about investments. We do have a new tool that launched this year. It's called AARP Interview and Advisor. And it actually is a tool that helps you understand what questions to ask when hiring somebody or when considering working with somebody who is a financial advisor. You know, sometimes if you go into that conversation unprepared, you know, that person could totally make decisions based on what's best for their own commission and not what's best for you. And so Interview and Advisor tool is a new tool that we rolled out. AARP Money Map is a tool that helps with unplanned expenses. Let's say you get a bill, you weren't expecting it, you don't know what to do, sort of walks you through. You can ask, you can answer some questions.